The UK is doing great. More jobs for gravediggers than ever. I mean, yeah. I don't think he's going to mention that, though.
I know. All right. Let's just talk about this for a minute. There's a lot more work for our gravediggers. And those gravediggers, they work very hard, you see.
It seems like there have been some interesting developments in the question of where did the Wuhan coronavirus come from, the COVID-19 coronavirus. And it appears that there has been a great deal of effort on the part...
Wait, no, come on, this is better. You all said you didn't want to see the nightmare spiders anymore and these giant insects and super wasps. Now we have wasps that are bigger than regular wasps. They're like 2 or 3 inches long. They're enormous. Their stingers are bigger than just like a regular wasp in its entirety. The entire body of a normal wasp, that's just the stinger of the super wasp. But that's the stuff of nightmares. We need to learn more about the eggs, all right? And yeah, he's got a great haircut going on right now. I mean, we're all suffering. I'm wearing a lot more water than I normally would in my hair just to keep it down, because otherwise it's an unruly puff. It goes to like such heights, but you know.
Part of this is about how China has been deceiving us as to what the situation was with the coronavirus. We've been over this before, but I'll cover a few quick points, because a leaked Intel dossier that was released 4 days ago on the 2nd really shone a lot of light into at least the understanding that the establishment is aware that China is definitely covering all of this up. I mean, there's actually...
Is there any Brits in the chat who can fill this in for me? Is that typical of the British accent? Do you add the at the end of China? So it's normally just not China, it's China. Is that colloquial? Is that indicative of the region that he's from? Is that perhaps a northern dialect that I'm not aware of? But
just inexcusable.
No, he's just a pretentious wanker. Well, of that I would agree with you, yes.
The first one being that the CCP just sat on the knowledge that there was a pandemic for 6 days in the beginning of January and did nothing. They just did nothing. Well, we say they did nothing, but by the end of January they had cancelled 20% of the domestic flights, as in out of Wuhan. However...
Good call out, bro. How's Britain doing in terms of their response to this? And how much time did they wait before they actually took action? And how is the NHS doing in the middle of this pandemic? I mean, just questions we're all asking. But of course, if you want to talk about moral relativism, there should be, I guess, a little bit of give and take, right, when it comes to this?
They didn't stop flights from that province going elsewhere in the world, which is really interesting. It really gets the noggin jogging. And the thing is, we know that they knew it was bad, because it is bad. You know, there's no question that there have been a huge amount of deaths from this. This has caused an awful lot of trouble.
The UK is doing great. More jobs for gravediggers than ever. I mean, yeah. I don't think he's going to mention that, though.
I know. All right. Let's just talk about this for a minute. There's a lot more work for our gravediggers. And those gravediggers, they work very hard, you see. Yes, you know. Come on now. All right.
This video from Voltaire's Ghost is one of the most interesting ones, because he, I believe, lives in Singapore, speaks whichever dialect of Chinese this is, and has done a video translating the leaked WhatsApp messages from the doctors themselves before, of course, they got shut down by the Chinese government, and, of course, before anyone started going missing.
Voltaire's Ghost. Just absolute...
But this, I mean, it's amazing. They knew. I mean, one of the people in this group said the friend was a doctor who'd been to Wuhan and diagnosed over 4,000 people. The hospital is taking no more patients. B, fuck me. A, I don't know if it's true. B, SARS was covered up at the beginning too. A, the government covers everything up. B, so a lot of dead people. A, they're afraid of causing a panic. Wow.
It's really remarkable. They found someone capable of deciphering this complex language, one of which we have no idea. There's no way of knowing what dialect it was, but it's good that he found someone capable of doing this. So this is deep research.
US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo just came out on May the 3rd, the day afterwards, and said that they have evidence, apparently overwhelming evidence, that ties the coronavirus's origins to the viral lab in Wuhan, which is something like 20 miles away from the wet market where the outbreak was first picked up on by the wider world. Pompeo was pretty damn blunt about this, saying that there was a significant amount of evidence that this came from a laboratory in Wuhan. This is not the first time we've had the world exposed to viruses as a result of failures in a Chinese lab, he says. Well, there we go, because it appears that they were indeed, the Wuhan Institute of Virology was indeed studying bat-borne coronaviruses like the one that causes COVID-19 at the time of the first known outbreak nearby.
So this is neat. It's like a really bad magic trick. What you got to do is you got to name two things. They're not necessarily correlated, but if you just mention two things in the same article and then don't exactly explain why you're trying to correlate them, people will assume, especially your audience, that they actually are directly related. So if you mention both that there are Chinese labs that would study virology as well as different viruses coming from bats, which of course is true, they are the ones that are probably going to have to deal with those viruses, and bats carry hundreds of thousands of different viruses. So studying that's not out of the realm. And then combining it with the fact that you're saying that the origin of the viruses comes directly from a Chinese lab, as if somehow the Chinese labs were synthetically creating these viruses to, of course, again, release them on their own people at first, and then suffer the hundreds of thousands of deaths, because this is like, it's a conspiracy theory peddled by a lot of people on the right, but again, in order to make it all make sense, you have to go to the logical conclusion. So in order to shut down the global economy, which would obviously devastate the Chinese economy, because the Chinese economy is completely dependent on the global economy, to which it usually sells most of its products. In order to do that, they had to create the synthetic virus, and then they released the synthetic virus on their own people, destroying and debilitating their own economy in the process, before then letting it reach the rest of the global economy, and then having to deal with the picked up pieces of that, because there's nothing better for China as a country than having a complete collapse and devastation of the entire global infrastructure. That just bodes really well for China. This is, I mean, of course, they're thinking about the long-term gain at the end of the day. And let's just skirt over the fact that the scientists studying this virus have said that this is in fact unilaterally, without question, not a synthetic virus, that this is 100% an organic virus, most likely a transfer from animal to human. But again, don't worry about all this.
I mean, these are complicated numbers. We don't quite know. We have to ask the hard questions. And again, if you look at Bloomberg, right, for looking at this, you can see there's varying degrees of viral outbreaks all over the world.
And of course, the director of the laboratory said there's absolutely no way the virus originated from our institute. Yeah, well, I guess I'll just take that on faith. It seems rather coincidental then that scientific journal Nature have an article from 2015 where they were talking about an experiment that created a hybrid version of a bat coronavirus, one related to the virus that causes SARS, has triggered renewed debate over whether engineering lab variants of viruses with possible pandemic potential is worth the risks. Scientists investigated a virus called SHC014, which is found in horseshoe bats in China. You'll notice the March editor's note on this because this appears to be obviously related to the question of, was this created in a lab? They say, we are aware this story is being used as a basis for unverified theories that the novel coronavirus causing COVID-19 was engineered. There's no
Oh, wow. Well, color me self-aware.
no evidence this is true. Scientists believe that an animal is the most likely source of the coronavirus. Well, ultimately, that would still be the same even if it was engineered, would it not? It would be the ultimate source of the virus, but the question is, has it had anything done to it?
Well, yeah, no. You're missing the most important part. They would not be the exact same. There would be a very different signature. The virus itself, which is, I believe, a strand of RNA, would have different coding if it was synthetic. That's what they've been saying since the start. Like, there's every demonstrable scientific community has been saying that for a long time that this is not, again, a synthetic or man-made virus. This was not made in a lab in Wuhan, China. This is a biological virus.
This sort of stuff was all included in the leaked dossier from the intelligence agencies that was seen by the Daily Telegraph. But there was a very interesting part here, again, where they talk about the risky research in Hubei province. I hope I've pronounced that right.
You haven't.
And from a Dr. Shi, who have been doing that. And one of the virus samples she had in the laboratory had a 96% genetic match to COVID-19. So when she heard about the outbreak of the new virus, she was worried that it could have come from her lab. Apparently, that 2015 Nature article was part of a series of research that they were doing to see whether these viruses would be transmissible from bats to other mammals, such as humans, and they concluded that yes, a SARS-like virus could jump directly from bats to humans, and there would be no treatment that could help. However, from the leaked dossier...
Oh, case closed. I don't need to know anymore. Just a completely random anecdotal evidence from someone else. That's enough for me. I think we've gotten, yeah.
They haven't concluded that this was actually created in a lab yet. They say the intelligence community also concurs with the wide scientific consensus.
They've concluded that it hasn't. That's basically universally accepted at this point. So anyone peddling anything other than that is going against the scientific community. It's been pretty universal that it has not been created in a lab.
For some reason, the Chinese government, and this is something the World Health Organization is complaining about, that they will not participate in investigations to the origins of the coronavirus. One representative said, "We know that some national investigation is happening, but at this stage we have not been invited to join." The damage that this has done economically is staggering. I'm sure you've all seen the reports of how like McDonald's and various other outlets are out of food at the moment. At the world map, according to the IMF, of GDP. Now, normally, obviously, I don't care about GDP, but
no, why would you?
It goes to show you the damage that has been done to the economies of the world at the moment, apart from to China and a few other places that I guess didn't lock down. It's really interesting how everyone else suffers and China doesn't.
So there it is. That's I mean, you need, if you're going to have a conspiracy theory, you got to have a motivation. So why exactly would China do what they did? And they did it, of course, for economic gain. While the rest of the world suffers under coronavirus, China has been thriving. They have been doing better than ever before. They're doing better than any other point in their history. Except no, not whatsoever. Their production capacity was reduced to about 50% directly after the coronavirus. The ravages of it worked their way through China. I mean, let's not even talk about the, hundreds of, tens of thousands of Chinese people who have both suffered and or died under the coronavirus. But of course, those are acceptable losses for this conspiracy theory. It's what you might call a false flag attack, to say the very least, just to, mask over plausible deniability. But then by tanking the rest of the world's GDP and the rest of the world's basically economy, China, that is incredibly dependent on international trade, travel, as well as the production and manufacturing of so many consumer goods that we all buy because everything is made in China. Now that we can't buy them anymore, China is doing better. ... I mean, I like how he made that statement and then didn't follow it up with any information to prove it. Because if he had looked it up, he would have seen that China's GDP has shrunk as a result of the coronavirus, and their ability to sell out of their goods is hurting. And on top of that, their production capacity has also been all but halved. So by any metric, it doesn't make any sense at all.
It is staggering how much economic damage has been caused by China. If let's assume just the best case scenario, that this was something that they were studying in Wuhan and escaped. And so it's not malevolent, it was accidental. Even then, that's sort of the negligence of this. And in the leaked dossier, they were questioning whether the risks of studying this were worth it. And it kind of seems like, is it? Like, is it worth shutting down the entire world for you to know about this virus that might transfer from bats? I mean, wouldn't it be easier to just ban the eating or selling of bats in these wet markets so we prevent the problem from happening that way? And
so you can't have it both ways. You can't say that it's both the wet markets and the transfer from animal to humans as well as being designed in a lab and just escaped. And also, if you're going to pick up that, like, the most important crux of his entire argument, which is that it has damaged the global GDP, and why would China do this? I think you just answered your own question. Why would they do that? Why would anyone do that? For the joy of having both your economy and the global economy shrink simultaneously? The deaths of tens of thousands of people worldwide. I mean, I don't want to do his work for him, but I could do a lot better job of painting a conspiracy theory here. If you want to take it like a couple steps further, at least try and do some grandiose idea that they're trying to secede the United States as the next global superpower, and that all the soft diplomacy that they're enacting right now, such as sending doctors to other countries, is just part of their secret plot in order to take over the world. And that's part of what it all is. I mean, boom. I think I just did a better conspiracy than Sargon of Akkad has in the full, 9 minutes that we've been watching him.
China is responsible for these deaths, if not by simply creating the virus themselves, even if not by them allowing it to escape from their lab, assuming it was just produced by natural causes in these disgusting wet markets, they still allowed it to spread. They still allowed the Wuhan festival, I think it was a New Year's festival, that was going on to carry on. They allowed people to leave. They didn't prevent people traveling to other countries. We didn't shut down our borders. And now we are in the situation that we are in. China is responsible for this, regardless of whether it was made or not. We cannot just let this go. And already, I've seen articles in The Guardian going, well, there's no point blaming China. Blaming China doesn't do anything. No, blaming China is is the position we start with when the lockdown is over, and then we begin to pick up the pieces because this is China's fault. Make no mistake.
Make no mistake, obviously. I mean, he did make a few. Here's an interesting part, though. It turns out that viruses don't operate that way. Disease doesn't work that way. It's kind of interesting. He's got, like, I guess, a biblical era understanding of the germ theory of disease. Because, diseases, they don't discriminate. They aren't basically, they don't have affiliations. They don't have political affiliations. They don't have, affiliations with countries. They're not pledging loyalty to the United States or pledging loyalty to communism or pledging loyalty to China. They're just disease. It has nothing to do with the country of origin or even the area of origin. And then to point the finger and blame China as an entire country for it. I mean, if you want to talk about some of the things that China does do, which is their authoritarian suppression of information, their huge firewall on their internet, the fact that they are systematically putting people of ethnic minorities and or religious minorities in internment camps, all very true things you can point out. But to say that China created and released a virus first amongst its own people and then globally in order to destabilize the global economy for some reason, he hasn't still made that completely clear, because again, if his suggestion was because it was to gain an economic advantage or a production advantage, it failed at both. So again, I mean, yeah, I'm spreading CIA propaganda. True, yeah.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Do you like cozy environments with other wholesome people? Well, then come join the Discord. It's got a whole bunch of stuff to help you with creative endeavors, such as stock footage, royalty-free music, and an amazing community of people looking to help each other out and uplift your content. Join the Discord now by going to weareserfs.com. That's weareserfs.com.
We would like to thank Miranda Marone. You are our monarch, and we thank you for our indentured servitude. We would like to thank our lords, Ricky Pilgrim, I'm Raft, Michaela Schmid, Tomospin, Ferrer Tahone. You are all the pillars of our organization. To our Knights of the Square Table, Paul Parafit, Daniel Kahn, Clement Chutskoth, Alan R., Josh Mickelson, and Dr. Zayas, Cooper Pilot, Andrea Lynn Epperly, Dylan Bythe, Terry, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. And to our merchants, thank you for taking mercy upon us.